Hannibal is accepted as one of the greatest military strategists of all time. Now, who here has heard of Hannibal? Heard of Hannibal? Who here has heard of Hamilcar? Okay, not as many people. Here is the way that mainstream education deals with Hannibal and his successes. They don't talk about his Phoenician background, the expertise of the Carthaginians, all right? The intellectual, commercial prowess of the Carthaginians as a people is ignored, and Hannibal is looked at as an aberration, like an anomaly, or rose out of the concrete type of thing. But it was not that way at all, and that's one of the main points that I have been trying to illustrate to you up to this very point. It's not as if Hannibal just all of a sudden, as it was born with such great intellect and boldness, and all of a sudden did the things that he was able to do without the cultural influence of his own people. It's not that way at all. It's the cultural influence of his own people, in particular his father, that enabled him to be the person that he was and the military genius that he was. All right, more food for thought. More food for thought. What does this tell us about us as a people? And I'm not just talking about antiquity. I'm talking about today. What does this tell us in terms of how we respond, how we learn from history? What do we get from this realization?
Our strength is in our culture.
Elaborate, brother.
Our strength is in our culture.
Okay. Right, definitely. If you are broken from the culture, you are pretty much far less formidable than what you would be otherwise. Yeah.
That the example men and women show, the children are picking it up. They're receiving messages.
Mm-hmm. They're receiving, right. They are receiving everything. They're watching how you deal with the opposite sex. They're watching how you deal with other men and other people of the same sex. They're watching how you deal with people of different ethnicities, different races. They're observing all of they're observing. Now, what you tell them is one thing. What you tell me is one thing. What I observe is something completely different. And of course, Hamilcar taught his sons and his daughters various things, but even greater than that was the example, all right? The example of who the enemy really is. Who really is the enemy, all right? If I'm down there on Charles and North or something like that, and, you know, somebody jacked me, take $10, $15, am I going to be like mad at them the rest of my life? No, because I know the conditions that created that particular situation, all right? Now, Hamilcar was an extraordinary military strategist, extraordinary. And where he made his bones, one of the conflicts that kind of helped him establish his reputation and ultimately become the leader of the whole of the military is Drepana right here, Battle of Drepana. Now, this area is Sicily. Whole lot of military strategy. I'm going to try to keep it very simple. But what transpired is this. Here are Romans. This blue right here. This is blue. These are Romans. Here are Carthaginians. And what we're looking at are lines of ships. So you can see the Carthaginian ships right here lined up facing the Roman ships with the mainland to their back. Who has the advantage right here? Carthaginians has an obvious advantage right here, but this is not the way that it all began. The way that it began is it was the Carthaginians who had their back to the mainland and the Romans who were facing them. The reason why the Romans attacked the Carthaginians is because the Carthaginians have a stronghold right here on the mainland. And that stronghold is maintained by Hamilcar. Hamilcar, with a ragtag army, is fighting off two different Roman armies. They could not stop Hamilcar. They cannot take Hamilcar out. He is being kind of like supplied because Carthaginian ships are sneaking through a Roman blockade. So finally the Romans came, found the Carthaginians there, deliberated as to how they were going to respond. The Carthaginians, while they were deliberating, crept behind these islands right here and came back and turned on the Romans and forced the Romans to give up those ships, supplies, and goods and everything. This happened over and over again. All right. The only thing that kind of enabled the Romans to prevail, and this is important. What is it that enables the Romans to prevail? I keep showing you, and this is only the beginning. Over and over again, I'm going to show you how the Carthaginians defeat the Romans. Why did the Romans ever win? Only reason why they ever won is because of what I'm about to tell you. Because they had greater reserves. And when I say greater reserves, I'm talking about numbers in humans, and I'm talking about land to provide essential resources. And on this particular day, in the Battle of Agates, the Romans finally were able to stop Hamilcar by setting up a successful blockade right here. Now this is Sicily. Hamilcar is controlling this whole area right here, and this is Carthage. If it wasn't for this blockade, Hamilcar would have been reinforced. So after this particular blockade, and as I stated here, the Carthaginians lost several ships. After this particular blockade, the Carthaginians pretty much just say, you know what, we're tired of fighting. This is 23 years later. All right. 23 years of fighting with a mercenary army. You have a great general, but you have limited resources. And after all of this time, the Carthaginians said, you know what, fine. We'll accept the peace treaty that you offered. Now, do you think they accepted this peace treaty and just rolled off into the sunset? Of course not, because then that would be the end of this lecture, right? But that's not what happened. Now look at the terms of the treaty. Evacuating Sicily. That's a major blow right there. Reason why it's a major blow, because I already told you the Carthaginians, they're growing rich through trade and throughout the Mediterranean, but they have places that are their granaries. One of their greatest granaries is Sicily. So when they lost Sicily, they lost a bread basket, essentially, which is important. When you're trying to provision an army, when you're trying to even feed a nation, a population, that's very important. These other things, they ignored this. Neither side to attack others' allies, insignificant. Carthage forced to pay indemnity. It wasn't really an important indemnity. Indemnity is the cost that the Romans accrued for the battle, but it was really small. Another main thing is that the Romans became the dominant power in the Mediterranean, although they could not really take advantage of it. What was the response? When the Carthaginians signed this treaty, they had absolutely no plan to cease fighting. They looked at it more as a break. Let us get our weight back up, like Tupac said, right? Get your weight up, not your hate up. Say, all right, we'll sign this treaty. But while all of this is going on, we're going to be preparing for our next battle. All right. So when you are not under duress, you have to be preparing for what's going to come next. Let me pose this to y'all. Do you think that your situation right now, it doesn't matter if it's good or it doesn't matter if it's bad, all right? Do you think that it can't get any worse? Do you think that there may be some challenges in the future that you may be best served preparing for now?
Yes.
No. That's the question that all of us should be asking ourselves. And this is intellectually, financially, health-wise. It doesn't really matter how you're talking about. Are you preparing for what's coming next? Are you preparing for our proverbial Punic War that really can come down, right? Carthaginians went and colonized Spain. You see this dark part of Spain right here?
Right.
That's colonized by the Carthaginians. Did y'all know that? This whole area right here, colonized by Carthaginians. So the Moors weren't the first blacks to go into Spain. All right? What the Italians do is take Corsica and Sardinia, because this infuriated the Carthaginians even further. But the whole purpose of going into Spain was simply to prepare themselves for the next battle. And the Romans, they were distrustful of Carthaginians, but I don't think that they foresaw what was about to come. And this is what was about to come. This gentleman right here. Now, I already told you, born of Carthaginian culture and society, born of Phoenician culture and society, but he was definitely a special and unique person. But was he special because of who he was in particular as an individual? Or was he created by a particular set of circumstances? All right. Now he was born in Carthage, but he went to Spain with his father when he was very young. Either he was 6 years old or 9 years old. Nonetheless, he was very young, and he begged and pleaded with his father to go to Spain. We're talking about 17 years. He was 9. 17 years of training, socialization, preparation to sustain this battle. All right. From day one, they already knew the responsibility of this young soldier. All right. We have a multitude of young soldiers out there with no guidance, and because they still have that warrior spirit, they recognize all of the hypocrisies in society. They've turned on self. They kind of turned on each other. But that is the warrior spirit with them. And that is the shortcoming of us, our shortcoming. Because we haven't prepared them. We haven't directed them to know who the true enemy is. This was not Hannibal's situation. His father ensured that he knew from day one our true rival, our true enemies are those Romans over there in Europe. All right, and bear that in mind. Not the Numidians, not fellow Carthaginians, not the Spaniards, but those Romans over there in Europe. And I love this picture right here. Any artists? Do we have any artists in here? We have no artists? A couple? All right. This picture right here, I'm not even going to tell y'all what company produced this picture right here. Y'all want to know? Anheuser-Busch. And I saw it, I said, come on, man. It's shameful, I guess, marketing. Nonetheless, they did get it right. Now, this is an unapologetic picture right here. Look at this. He's not portrayed as a mulatto. He's not, he's not being portrayed as light-skinned, trying to avoid the issue. He here is clearly portrayed as an African, and a majestic African, a powerful African, not a cowering character, not simply a comedian, but an African right here determined to take care of business. And you can see here by his train behind him. He's on an elephant, and his train has other elephants behind him. All right. Now remember, one of the terms of the agreements was that there was supposed to be no attacking the other's allies. But like I told you, they knew, Carthaginians knew that they were going to fight again. Right? So he attacked the Roman ally Saguntum. This is in northern Spain. And the Romans did not want to fight. They did not want to get into another battle with the Carthaginians and pleaded with the Senate. Rein in Hannibal. All right, tell him to slow down with all of what he's doing. But they didn't. Reason why they didn't? Well, of course they were bitter about the previous conflict. Another thing is that Hannibal was filling the coffers of Carthage. He was providing them with a lot of wealth in tin and silver from Spain. But another thing is they had the power of foresight. They just simply didn't ignore what was likely to become. They knew their history. They knew that they had been signing treaties for centuries. They knew that they had already gotten into a war. And even after that, had lost valued colonies. They were looking at the way things were likely to proceed. If you want to do whatever, and it calls for you to speculate about what's going to happen in the future, you need to look at the past. And I'm not talking about like my mama, my grandmama in the way that most people do. I'm talking about look at the whole of your cultural heritage. Look at the way things have gone since certain relationships began. And that will give you some idea of the way that they are likely to proceed. And they knew, as far as their relationship with the Romans were concerned, things were not likely to get better. They were going to have to defend themselves at some time. And to be frank with you, that is the contemporary situations of Africans. We're going to have to stand up at some time. I'm not saying be irresponsible. I'm simply saying accept that reality and prepare for that reality. Now, Hannibal is best known for this trek across the Alps right here. This is what he's best known for. And these mountains right here, the Alps, are, well, I'm going to show you a picture of them, a real picture of them in a minute. Very challenging task to cross the Alps with 50,000 with 50,000 foot soldiers. Very, very challenging. Right. And this, you see how rocky this is, how unlevel this is? This is the highest point in the Alps that he crossed. Right. With 50,000 troops, 9,000 cavalrymen, and several dozens of elephants. So he's not just doing this like, he knows it's not going to be a cakewalk. He's determined. He's looking into the future. He knows what's at stake, put it that way. And I try to remind myself of that all the time. What's at stake if you don't do what you're supposed to do, Brother Keparai? Not only for myself, but for the people that I'm responsible for. Hannibal knew what was at stake, which is the only reason why he took on this task. The reason why Hannibal is even a household name is because of this particular set of battles. Y'all know this boot right here. We call that Italy today. Ticinus, which is a river. Trebia, also a river. Here's Rome. And here is Cannae. All right. Down here, way down here, is where Carthage is. But like I've already told you, the Carthaginians, under the leadership of Hamilcar, and then eventually his son Hannibal, established Spain as a stronghold to get their reserves up and their numbers in people, and also silver reserves, colonized this area. They attacked a Roman ally, Saguntum, up here in the north, which brought about the Second Punic War, proceeded to cross the Alps, the Alpine Mountains over here, with about 90,000 people, and sent back about 30,000 of them or so. By the time they crossed the Alps, they had about 50,000 troops, 50,000 infantrymen, like on foot, and about 10,000 cavalrymen on horses. One of the first battles was Ticinus, and what's intriguing about this is the way that Hannibal consistently manipulated the Romans. And if you accept that you have a rival, you need to know your strengths and weaknesses, and you need to have some idea of the strengths and weaknesses of that rival. All right. Now, if you're an African in America, if you're looking at your history in America, you can understand the arrogance of Europeans, essentially. And this is what happened here. They wanted Hannibal so much because he eluded them all the way from the time that he crossed over into Europe. And several of these generals were trying to make a name for themselves, finally met up with Hannibal at Trebia. They thought that he would undertake their traditional form of warfare, which they are called skirmishes or pitched battles, where you fight and then withdraw, fight, then withdraw. But in this case, he threw them off by putting his stronger troops in the center and attacked them straight down the middle. Then he used a tactic that he has become known for, which many